welcome back to the Patriot Network TV. Part 2, healthcare, we got to stop it. I want to refer you specifically to not two right-wing, hardcore Republican opponents of the current healthcare bill. I want to refer you to two lifelong Democrats, Pat Caddell and Douglas Schoen, writing today in the Washington Post. And I would refer you to their editorial, "If Democrats Ignore Healthcare." And I would urge you to read this. Now, Mr. Caddell was the pollster, for Jimmy Carter, and Schoen was the pollster, for Bill Clinton. These are two hardcore, lifelong Democrat operatives. They believe deeply in what I would refer to as the union blue-collar Democrat Party of my parents. In my parents' generation, there was a much smaller gap between the Republican and the Democrat Party. And these are mainstream guys from the days that the Democrat Party represented some kind of mainstream value. They are urging, and they do this chapter and verse, they are urging the members of the House and Senate not to push this forward. They're referring to it as the March of Folly. And they are saying that people in the Congress, in the House and the Senate, who ram this bill down the throats of the American people against their will, against the stated expressed will of the American people, will pay in the fall. They are saying that November will be a landslide of epic proportions if this healthcare bill is rammed down the throats of the American people. Today's Rasmussen polling shows that 53% of Americans oppose, and of that, 80% strongly oppose this bill, this 2,500-page abomination, this HB 3200, the ObamaCare bill, is harshly opposed by 80% of the people who oppose it. So 53%, a clear majority of the American people say, don't do this. 43% of the American people say that, yeah, we should pass it, with 10% of those strongly agreeing. Now, not only do the Democrats in the House and the Senate not have a majority of Americans behind them, they do not have anywhere near the velocity, the intensity that is in the opposition camp. I have friends who are doctors, and for a number of reasons, political and personal, they don't want to come out and make a giant stand on this because they are afraid of reprisals by the federal government, by the state government, by the medical establishment, quote unquote. But my friends who are doctors who invested 10 years of postgraduate education getting their MD, becoming surgeons, becoming radiologists, becoming people who are healers, to a person, they tell me this bill will force them to leave the practice of medicine. Now, the president has said the AMA, the American Medical Association, backs this bill. Did you know that only 17% of physicians nationwide are still members of the American Medical Association? I was stunned to find that out. One of my friends who is a doctor informed me of that. There are a number of and these are grassroots doctors' organizations that have come out, and they are rabidly trying their best to educate the public that this bill will be devastating for them. Docs for Patients. Go to YouTube and type in docs, the number 4, patients, and look at the YouTube videos that come up. Doctor after doctor after doctor, practicing physicians, real physicians with real patients will tell you that what is in this bill is a 21% cut of Medicare reimbursement to doctors and a $500 billion cut to Medicare patients. And what are those two cuts aimed at doing? Funding healthcare for illegal aliens. Pick a number, 20 million, 30 million. That's how many people are in the country illegally. Under this bill, they will be covered by federal insurance for healthcare. And what's next? The immigration bill to make every one of them citizens. If you want to be a permanent voting minority in America, you being fiscally responsible people who don't want a $3 trillion or a $5 trillion, whatever this works out to be, dollar bill to have quote unquote everyone insured, meaning 30 million illegal aliens insured, paid for on your dime. If you're against this, this is one of your last chances to stop this. I want to urge you, for the sake of yourself and the sake of your children and grandchildren, for the sake of your Medicare, for the sake of your retirement, for the sake of the country that you've worked your whole life to build, I want you to get on the phone to your representative and tell them in no certain terms, you work for me, you are my employee. I am telling you to vote no on this. I want you to call Ann Kirkpatrick's local office, 445-3434. My preference would be that you would crash that switchboard with so many calls. I want that switchboard called day and night, and I want everyone who believes in freedom and is opposed to illegal aliens being given free health care in America, I want you to dial 445-3434 and tell Representative Kirkpatrick that she had better vote no on this bill. If she votes yes on this bill, you are voting no on her come November. It is time to tell the elected officials that they had better start representing us. They work for us, not vice versa. The current operation deficit of the United States federal government is $1.6 trillion. And that's on $3.6 trillion of spending and $1.6 of unfunded spending, deficit spending. From the founding of the country in 1776 up until 1980, we ran up $800 billion worth of deficits, or a total federal debt. 1980, $800 billion. Today, one budget, $1.6 trillion. We cannot afford this health care bill. We cannot afford to provide health care to 30 million illegal aliens. We cannot afford to cut the health care of our senior citizens, the greatest generation of Americans, the generation that won World War II, the generation that beat back the Great Depression, the generation that led the way to destroy the Berlin Wall and bring down communism. We can't let those people have their medical care cut by $0.5 trillion so that we can fund illegal aliens and permanently change the character of this country. Finally, I want you calling your representatives locally. If you call Ann Kirkpatrick's office, 445-3434. If you call Harry Mitchell, 480-946-2411. Call these people and tell them, if you vote yes on health care, I'm voting no on you. This is still your country. You don't have to spend trillions of dollars providing health care for people whose first act upon entering the United States is to break our federal law. You do not have to engage in a process that is going to make citizens out of people who repeatedly, intentionally violate our laws and our most sacred values. It is time to stand up and tell the House of Representatives, vote no on this bill or I'm voting no on you. Get out there and enjoy the day. We'll see you next week.